Sheila here with Sirius Dallas Moon 555 as I open this recording. Mercury hour, almost sol day, Mercury 16 degrees Capricorn, applying to oppose Jupiter, midheaven separating from Spica, Moon 8 degrees Scorpio, and ascendant 9 degrees Capricorn. Well, as I was recording the previous episode, which was talking about really kind of dark themes that happen, I also remember the interview of Cressia Tassio with Christina, and the vibe across, whether it's Romania or Bulgaria, um, but also across certain European nations. For example, Reinhard May, I think it was a year ago, did a rendition of Nein, meine Söhne geb ich nicht, okay, I do not give my son to war, together with young people. And the spirit that is prevalent also in Europe, why I say also in Europe, not also in Europe and in other places, as much as, while there may be other spirits in Europe, this spirit is very prevalent. And this is the fact that people see, if wars are around natural resources, then why do we need to fight, first of all? Natural resources are of the planet for the planet. And, if, let's say, there's shipping companies, when I was traveling to Europe with my mom, and we thought to be during the winter in Europe. It was quite ambitious, and we folded the tail between our feet, and like good dogs came back, being sober. And we go to one shipping company, and they say, "This is November. The sea is the sea, and we don't have anything that sails that sea, being the Mediterranean." But they say, "Come, drink coffee, and turn to the neighbor shipping company, supposedly the competitors." And that company, fortunately, had something that sails that sea. It was one sailing through the Mediterraneans. Yes, of course, not talking about luxury ships, it's not luxury cruise, but this is a nice way to travel on budget back then, when there weren't floods and storms, and yeah. And the reason that was possible is because of a principle that I would later learn when I would learn import-export course. And one of the things that I took from there, it was a small course I learned when I learned Dutch. There was a lady that was doing certificate in import-export, and I said, "Oh, let's do that as well." I'm not compatible with all the little digits, but I studied anyway, and I'm very happy that I did. And he said two things. One, small person, small clients, small companies. We talk about shipping. Okay, big client, big company. So if you're often small business, you want international shipping, go for smaller shipping companies. They will give you better service if something is lost than the big ones for whom your package is a needle in a haystack. There may be some companies that are able to do that as big companies as well, but that was one thing. And the other thing was, when there is one shop, let's say of a clothes, or one grocery shop, okay? But let's say clothes, something is new. Everybody wonders about that shop, like, if you go to a village, me and my mom had that. We bought a car in Germany, but we're not Germans, so the plate was different. And then we like to travel through the villages. It's the most beautiful, where you see the forests and so on, and nature. And when we would park the car, everybody would look, who are these people? That way you were looked at when you open, let's say, a new business, one clothes shop. But if there are 10, the clients for all of these shops. Unless you have like a big, how should I say that, vastu or feng shui mishap, then you're gonna have probably good clients. Unless you are exceptionally good in another field and people hunt you. My mom had publicity skills and design skills, and she was so feared that they didn't sell her clothes when she opened the clothes shop. And then the one client she had exploded in a bombing in an Intifada. She wasn't a terrorist. She was just took the blow to save the other people, and and they had to switch. And my mom had to switch her business. that's basically that's basically the story. Not really funny, but it ain't like the Palestinians had it easy. So that's usually what we would say. Before 7 October, it was very difficult to get the public opinion in Israel because every time a bomb would drop on us, we would think, well, at least we're not. There is even worse, and we feel like we can't complain. Um, so to get to do something like what they did after 7th October, they really needed an entire parade where people are ritually sacrificed and tortured and raped and kidnapped to civilians, and that was orchestrated for quite some years. I can say, as a person that had evaded a lot of attempts. They wanted me to invite people to the Nova. I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, I don't listen to this psychedelic music, and there was just nothing to hold on to. Other people that were, and usually if people do drugs, is for PTSD in Israel. So many people were supposed to be at the Nova party. They wanted me to communicate with other people and invite them, people from abroad, by the way. Even one of my colleagues, I think, um, and yeah, she doesn't know. She worked at the pharmaceutical industry before she came into astrology. LGBTQ person. I don't know why they wanted to target her. I think because she resisted certain things with the dogmas of pharmaceutical, it could be, or something else. We're not in contact for several years, but because I addressed the trafficking, I addressed the trafficking behind academia, and she went Marcel on me. She worked as a stripper, so probably she couldn't speak about a lot. And maybe I'm even misgendering, but but any case, that was a person that they wanted to target. Yes, and I of course did not tag along with that. I was tortured for 7 days. The use of psychic torture on 7th October, and they really needed all that parade to get the Israelis to consent to what was done in Gaza. That they get nothing from. Um, but the minerals in the Dead Sea, anyway, if we really wanted to do international relations, we would abolish extortion cults. But this is in societies where the fathers, the imams, are saying we go by Islam when they forbid child marriages, which is, like I said, is the truth of seers, but at peace. So, in Europe, there are the trends of people saying, hey, we see that these wars are about natural resources. You want to argue about natural resources and their distributions? There are other ways to do that. And even if it's not like we, the people, see anything from that. We see debt, and we're told that there is war, so that we have to pay debt, where other people get rich by looting minerals and depriving people of human rights and enslaving people, causing trauma that takes decades to recover from. And they say, we're not wanting to recruit, by the way, not on one frontier only. In fact, in the frontier that was in Ukraine, they it was known that the commanders were shooting at the soldiers, and the soldiers were shooting back, and the war was more between commanders and soldiers than the frontier, because I'm not talking about the missiles, and of course there were other things, but this is because people didn't want to go to war. This is why I'm saying, you know, whether you're gay, straight, whatnot, women's rights are so important, because when the four mothers that were demonstrating for the children to not go to war, women, even if they wouldn't have their own baby with you, they would marry you just for the documents and adopt the baby together to say don't go to war. All they really need to know is that you're not rapey. One of the reasons, for example, when I was 10 years in a friendship, not relationship, one of the reason it was easy to get me to not only run away, because I needed to run away, but I said I knew that that person probably was tortured and so on, was because I said that person would want to have family. We're not couple. Yes, it was way before 7th October. And also, if we live in cohabitants, even though we're friends, we're not married, but for prolonged period of time, we could be considered known in public, which would affect more his finances than mine. And I just left and stayed out, not even knowing what's happening behind my back for several years. So, and this is why women's rights are so important to preserve. See, if even my friend, not husband, not boyfriend, no nothing, was being abused at his work, I saw at first they take the coffee. I said at first they take the coffee, then later they take the salary. And there were 5 elections, was working at a public job. They made a revolution. The coffee revolution. A woman will tell you, do you get good energies with this person? Do you get good energies with this person? Or kyanite. I said, okay, kyanite fix all the problems. Amazing. Let's bring kyanite to the entire world. Maybe we'll have world peace with blue kyanite. But when women's rights are not kept, then it's possible to take men to war. This is why the good news is that a lot of people see in Europe that those campaigns are not really working. Yeah, I did. Thank you. So they see it's not really working for them. And they see that they know what's going to be next. This war, many people dead. And then there's debt, because we have war, we have to pay for the war. All the while, they made shit ton of money looting minerals, and then no dividends. And they were looting minerals, violating human rights. So not only no dividends, they have to pay shilumim. So they have the people paying shilumim. And so a lot of people say they will not go to war. on both frontiers. And this could be the good news, is that we don't see the Europeans that were um, turning into anonymous mass graves. In Europe, people remember, even more than the Second World War, they remember the big war. They remember the anonymous graves. For me, every time a person or a man tries to be weird with me, I have the image of the mass graves, the anonymous graves that I saw in Europe. And people in Europe, every place that they have a memorial for the Great War. When I was traveling in Europe, I was really, really surprised, because I thought that the Second World War would be the big issue. But I saw the memorials always said the Great War. And then along the Great War was the First World War, not the second one. And it was the war that they thought would end all wars. So Europe remembers that. The memorials are there, the statues are there. I don't know, as per the eastern parts of Europe, what I hear from Christina, from Krasi, is people are not, they're not dumbing down. They do resist big war. They're not stupid. Also, we remember the fall of the Great Wall and the fact that Europe paid better. Okay, corporate job people, oriented people to corporate jobs, they want to work in Germany. They said themselves, yes, we're cheap labor. I had a friend, I think she was from Chesky. Chesky, yes. And she said, I'm cheap labor. Maybe I will find a husband, maybe I will not find a husband. And even global businesses, they know. They allocate resources to Romania, they get way better trained people. So intelligent. I did chart of Romania. These are people that are Aquarius oriented. They don't need to make a lot of noise. They know things that we are not even aware of. That's why when I hear people from these countries speak, I just um, it's not surprising to me that there's going to be rise of the Slavs. I had a friend in Bulgaria. We were both in high school. I was in high-tech nation, the best public school in Israel. There were two best public schools in Israel. I lived with my mother at my grandmother to go to study there. And she did work, basically, she exposed something to do with what I now understand is targeted individuals. And this was at for age she was 15, maybe 16. Something that the best advocates could not do. Libra. That's Libra women. Um, they look like a fairy and they're smarter than most. That's. Um, but um, this is something that is positive because people ask questions. Also, Age of Aquarius, people ask questions. I hope it will get to the West as well. We need to import it. um, so, um, but this is something that, yes, that we see happening. Um, every time there is this omnipotence. Um, yes, I don't like to use the word psychosis, but but they're really trying to go to find a term that better accentuate this. But the brotherhood omnipotence psychosis. Every time it rises, an empire falls. um, but let's take a look at the world news. Repression in Uganda. Fighting in Syria's Aleppo continues. I need to do chart of Syria, which will probably be a controversial question. You notice that I didn't put a flag on the on the Iran episode. Iran was recalling 1,200 passports, almost 1,300 passports. Let's see why. Because they weren't printed well, and those who will try to use them will run into problems um, at the at the boarding. So this is weird to me. We're not in a Mercury shade. We're not in a Mercury retrograde. I have to admit, if it was Mercury retrograde in Saturn sign, I would say that's something that can be, but nothing. Mars, Pluto is direct, Saturn is direct, Mercury is direct. We're not in any shade period of those. What happened? I think it's Saturn Neptune, but something going missing. But this is not. Why recall to passports? Passports definitely Saturn Pisces. Jupiter is retrograde. I did not know that Jupiter can do that. Because Jupiter is travel documents, Saturn, Jupiter. So it's travel documents. And Saturn also means print. Mercury as well. Mercury is the media and is the letters and so on and so forth. But if I talk about the structure of print, it's difficult to me to explain why. Because there is okay, it's both why Saturn and Mercury rule teeth. I need to explain this better to myself so I can explain this better to you. The technology and the letters and the printing act is very much mercurial. What we print, let's say, first of all, a document, of course, is Saturn, but it's also when we print, let's say, a book, then it is a tedious work that requires Saturnian effort. So print actually has to do also with Saturn, the commercial use of print. Um, yes, Ministry of External Affairs. So basically, that calls all the Irish people to reprint. Now, this type of thing can be before they want to move into digital ID or passports that are not dependent. Think about face recognition. If I go tomorrow on board in an airport that has face recognition, I would simply need to look at the camera, and this is good thing, bad thing, who knows. By the way, right after I got my passport, which was with face recognition, they just took my photo, but they can use face recognition with that. I was traveling with an actor that would play some mafia mitigating bourreur, the role of, I think it is the role of Yaakov Alperon, but I met the actor, and they were talking about how the face, they have masks that one could look like anyone in the world with makeup. I assume that social engineering juxtaposed us for a reason, because that can be used for intelligence, but also for identity theft. And again, I said it before, I was not going to have a biometric ID. I have, of course, the Dutch one, which was years ago, but I was not going to have a biometric ID. But the only alternatives were extortion cults, and I said, Falcon, if we would have zero rape society, we could be an alternative to that. And they wanted Nix, so they got Nix. They got basically being exposed as extortion cults, because people are going to wonder why the money missing, what went missing, where it's missing, where it's missing to extortion cults, and the money going missing to extortion cults. So if only the extortion cults wanted to have people not do biometric ID so that they can traffic them, then they're going to have to be exposed as extortion cults on a worldwide scale. And that's what I said when I was going to have my ID, because when I was not having my ID, they tried to traffic me. I said, listen, you could be an opposition, you could be an alternative too, but you insist on being an extortion cult, and you offer basically nothing, and that's why. And I think it's very sad, because these extortion cults do not get dividends. They get exposed. If Epstein was exposed in 2008, Falcon, of course it's going to be a mass world scale exposure of extortion cults. Every single Epstein, every single Detru, every single diddler. And I'm the first one that says we need to have the right to exit violence. But if these extortion cults run by continuing these activities, trying to traffic people, all of these things, then that's, to me, it's a missed opportunity. And I said it when I did my ID, it's a missed opportunity to actually unite, to actually do something. I've been consistent. I've been very, very, very consistent. And it cost me a lot. And then when I saw they only try to traffic people who talk realistically. Okay, we're gonna have a lot of people suffering with claustrophobia and agoraphobia. They can't go to that building to renew the ID. And I did testing times. Okay, so testing times is basically when there's a study case and I contact the authorities and I say, hey, I have this person, They have claustrophobia. I want to surprise them with a cruise. Doesn't matter if I'm actually going to do it or not. It's just a testing time for what this bureaucracy can do, or the fail test of the system. And I say, hey, I want to renew their passport. I want them to have the opportunity to do that, but they can't reach to the place where they have to take their fingerprint or whatnot. And I want to surprise them. What what can we do? Nothing. No answer. No, they have to go here. They have to go, but they can't go inside this closed building. And I said the cruise ship because cruise ship can be on the deck. After war, people are going to have claustrophobia, agoraphobia. What good is face recognition? So many people were amputated limbs. What good is fingerprints? And the masks? Now, all of this is true, but if the only alternative is the very extortion cults that created those systems, then we don't have a viable union of people that can actually do something. I think it's a missed opportunity. I think a lot of the people that were running these extortion cults, they know that it's deadline for all these organized crime. And I'm all for, okay, I'm not a judgmental person. I say some people grew up in certain upbringings and so on and so forth. But the right to exit violence has to be there, and the foundation of how they got them to be in organized crime is being raped as children and forced to rape. And the zero rape is what changes, the one thing that changes everything. But there's still time. But again, and when it comes to Europe, we saw that they try to silence the people or to surveil messages supposedly in rights of children or whatnot. And people said, okay, they reopened the through the series basically. And they are putting on hold even the digital ID when it comes to Great Britain. Now, also a country that has been suspected in organized trafficking within the country cannot claim restrictions on the citizens that testify. Because that basically is called interfering with the juristic procedure. Yes. Again, I don't know if that. Like I said, it's human rights o'clock. God does not look at the world from afar. Well, then the church. What does he say about the church calling empathy as a sin? That's Syrian forces expel Kurdish fighters as U.S. strikes Islamic State's targets. Again, weren't the Kurdish genocided? Syria. We're gonna have to do Syria chart, but let's see first what's more here. Not yet, not yet. Thank you. Aleppo. Macron says the world powers battling temptation to divide up the world. Uh, that's a very honest declaration. Isn't the guy whiffing? um, so probably, I think probably it's a misnomer. Probably CNN did something with the phrasing, because I don't think he said it like that. maybe it did, I don't know. International media call for transparency from AI companies. Yeah, jab and a jab, but I also have journalism literacy, so I know that sometimes people can mess up the words. Um, and yes, and when I think this is something like that, then I say it as well. Transparency from media companies. Now, here's the thing. For example, in astrology, we have programs like, what was it, Authority Astrology, okay? A conglomerate that doesn't tell us who the owners, who are the benefactors, where is the information taken from, are the people that contributed to the program are benefactors of the company. No transparency whatsoever regarding who is the stakeholder. Now, it's not new to AI. If I and I remember I spoke about my pitch where I was going to pitch to a company called Eagle, which is an investment company. I said, let's do a series live show broadcasts on some like YouTube, social media. We take homeless, we give them 5 shekels, okay, or a dollar. Have them invest half that dollar and see what that dollar does. Age of Air, people are gonna be interested. Um, They wanted nothing to do with me. Actually, the person that was the secretariat was very welcoming, and I really, really thankful to him because I would never get to talk to the CEO if not the person that opens the door, and I'm really, really appreciative of that. Shows of a person that has innovation in his running in his blood. But what the CEO told me, he said we have big clients of the public and private sectors. We do not talk about our clients, and he was not willing to hear about anything. But the fact that he said public, what is public? It's our money, it's our taxes funneled through investment companies when we know nothing about what it does. So, and some people wanted me to seduce him. He's probably gay, and I don't do that type of stuff. So, um, nor would I think that they can, they don't need me to psychically read him. Like I said, I don't work with this type of what they call intelligence. It's not intelligence. Only zero rape can be intelligence. And you see, I stand for zero rape society. I think the information I bring is quite coherent. Um, and the information comes to me. And that is basically how and why this works. And this is why it's also important to maintain human rights. Women's rights is one sector of human rights, as I've showed previously. Nobel Institute rejects Maria Corina Machado's offer to share Peace Prize with Trump. Okay, so again, cases of I don't know if she wants what she's asking for because okay, and yes, I'm not gonna. I don't think I need to elaborate about that. Report signals India's ambition to be global talent magnet. Interesting. So we see Syria. So all you're reading was Syria. Now let's take a look at India. But for India, I really need I really need an Indian astrologer on this. Karpil. Does Karpil have an episode on that? I know that India was going through challenging the caste. Actually, Karpil talked about nobody has to work underneath anybody a while ago. So That would be interesting, but I need the person that knows the culture. Um, yes, I mean, I can ask for a Syrian astrologer, but I think that that's kind of like asking for a Congolese astrologer, which means that it's not that there aren't, it's that they're probably fighting for their lives right now. Um, but with India, I think that would be interesting to hear from people that also Indian astrology is different to Western astrology and would have the accuracy with the nakshatras um, and all these things. So India must take strategic shift from being primarily a supplier of global talent to becoming a magnet for it, according to landmark policy reports published by India Apex Public Policy think tank Niti Ayog. Um, how are they planning to do that is another question. Unsustainable talent flow imbalance. And indeed, India is one of the best top providers of engineers across the world. Any type of engineering positions, I know India's are excellent for. When Tim Ferriss wrote his 4-hour work week, he was addressing allocation to other countries, and he was addressing India with customer service. Um, and so whatever we think about that, he was also how should I say that, quite aware about that, but he was kind of picking his battles when it comes to um, human rights. There's no other way to say that. He said first make your money, then become human right, but then the missing link here is the rubbing shoulders with the Epsteins. And for me, I stopped there, and then I began to talk about explosion codes, because I was juxtaposed. Those of you that watch probably can do your guesses, but I was juxtaposed, and to me it's a wealth block. Okay, extortion calls are a wealth block, and I think that this would be, if they talk about the invention of Wi-Fi, then I think abolishing extortion calls will be equal to the invention of Wi-Fi. So yeah, I can't say I did it because I haven't managed to abolish extortion codes yet. But if there's one thing that changes everything, not just to my career, because I have keto, so I'm 41, 48 keto maturation, and it's more about Rahu, um, but if the one thing that changes everything for entire business sectors, any sector, it would be abolishing of extortion codes. Um, the recalibration of internationalization at a critical moment. Yes, one of the things that I think challenging the caste system, I think, could really contribute to having more people studying in India, but then they would, or being a power that stays in India, but then they would have to compete Indian engineers, which I think is impossible. It's, so, maybe the Romanians can offer a tough battle, but yes, especially what about the Israelis? Too busy in extortion cults. They're they're that called Silicon Valley, and then it drops its missiles on their heads. So what can I say? It's not that we're not smart. We just need to exit cult like anything. Um, and the fact that they spot talents and the intelligence run on Epstein dark occultism, Baal something. It's frustrated Israeli. So I can tell, I have Uranus in the 10th house in Sag. So whether I'm a jack of all trades and so on and so forth, but here is the thing. Uranus in Sag in the 10th house is like, what can I say? Bring me to a workplace, it's revolution time. But this revolution time is also leaving that place. It's basically taking away my Jupiter and Saturn, so taking away everything that business is not prepped up to actually be world scale successful. The ruler Saturn is in the ninth house. Then I will take that from the foundation just by being. It's just something I'll say, something I'll do, even something I won't do. Okay, and that is, yeah. For those that get a job, it's like watch what you wish for. That's Uranus. Uranus does that, and in 10th house, we do that in our career space. Even in astrology, I thought astrology would be a remedy. Then I talk about MK often. um, I was trying to, when I have Rao in the fourth house, so around during and before COVID, basically, it was my Rao return. And I thought I'm retired. And then I said my legacy is already laden. That was before I began to talk about sexual sovereignty as the one thing that changes everything in terms of national and international security. Like I said, I'm not 48 yet. um, okay, Syria. School attacks in Nigeria. Just 5 days ago. Something new. Oh, I have a guest. The royal cat has entered the arena. Yeah. British serial skies. You know what I heard? I heard British serial killer. British skier killed in avalanche in French Alps. Israel is on high alert if the US will intervene in Iran. Yes. And I'm recording. Thank you. I know I'm recording for several hours since the middle of the night, but by the way, it was like that since I was born. My mom said that before I knew how to speak in language, it would be 5 a.m. and I would already be speaking in gibberish back then until the evening. Definitely a family of people of the word. And then I learned how to sing, which was basically um, the latest headlines at 500 dead after escalating powers protests in Iran. Again, Iran. Okay, so that's what. Let's look at Syria. Now all this talking, but here's the thing: when a company was corrupt, I couldn't do customer service because I would have a throat sore. So I was basically I can speak for hours, but only the truth. Syria. I'm recording. Okay. Ascendant on the midheaven of Israel, 24 degrees Cancer, midheaven, 12 degrees Aries, Mars in Aries, 20 degrees, Lilith retrograde, 24 degrees. So Lilith is where Aries is. Charon was going over Mars, but now it's 22. Saturn Uranus conjunction between 28 degrees Taurus to 0 degrees Uranus. Sedna has been conjoining Saturn and Uranus in the past years. It's not all the way to 2014. Jupiter in Gemini, Pluto 5 degrees Leo, Rahu 22 degrees Virgo. Rahu is on the lot of fortune or lot of assassination in the Netherlands 1800 chart. But it's true. 27 degrees Neptune in Neptune close to Al-Qaeda, which means destructions of cities. Unfortunately, Aleppo is suffering from that a lot. We had another triggering of this eclipse. I call it the Genghis Khan eclipse. Sol 3 degrees Libra, Venus in Scorpio, Mercury end of Libra, but not close enough to speak of. Moon, Mula Nakshatra, 21 degrees Sag, Jupiter Gemini. A lot of fortune, 6 degrees Taurus. Well, it's the Pluto opposition. We've entered the Pluto opposition for Syria. Yes, Pluto 3 degrees is already in orb for the Pluto opposition. The Genghis Khan eclipses, which is going from with Rahu in Pisces, so this is international type of issue. Uranus is going over the Saturn, and it's also Uranus return for Syria. So, and the Neptune opposition. Pluto opposition, Neptune opposition, Uranus return. Just that, even without the Genghis Khan eclipses, just that is transformation from the core. Aleppo again is suffering. I think it was in Damascus, but yeah, we are in Syria. But Aleppo is suffering a lot. Again, Neptune is in the sign of destruction of cities. Neptune opposition can mean even floods or destruction of cities, plagues in cities. Unfortunately, also biochemical weapon. Pluto opposition will be on royal degree, so it means we saw that Bashar al-Assad is no longer, but any type of monarchy will be superseded. Saturn Uranus means that there is a new form of regime. Okay, and this goes back to 1941. So Saturn Uranus ignition is a new form of regime. Again, it's not yet Saturn return. Before 2030, they're going to have a Saturn return, which I believe would be a new form of regime in Syria. Again, a country that is divided in such a way where the minority is persecuted, but the minority is the elite. So, and the majority is not necessarily more civil. So that's. And so Bashar al-Assad was more religiously tolerant, but then his mistake was again not doing zero rape war tactics. Same mistake. Hello there. Yeah. Same mistake of Muammar Gaddafi. Both of them failed at that, and because they did, they fell. For example, if Bashar al-Assad would instigate a zero rape society, he could, as elite, conquer all these people with legitimacy. And Muammar Gaddafi would get his housing for every person and could go and could move out of the tent with his palsy. But now his son, I think, came back to Libya, so it's never too late. Syria is just, it's just very simple. All the outer planets are in significant transit, and we had the Genghis Khan eclipses, so so international upheaval, a transformation from the core of the leadership, particularly of monarchy type royal families. Yes, would there be a woman leader? Not impossible. By the end of this upheaval, that there would be woman leader. Sedna going through the 12th house. So again, another Cancer ascendant country. Uranus going through the 12th house when Uranus ingresses into Gemini later. And Sedna going through the 12th house. This will expose everything that happens in jails, in prisons, hospitals, and of course 12th house is bedroom. So all the bad practices of Syrian people, but also Dutch people, 1800 chart, are basically being revolutionized, and they cannot be hidden anymore. And this would cause upheavals, invasions. Okay, Netherlands is in risk for a code orange. I talked about it previously. And again, it's susceptible because of the extortion cults. Okay, as I think that they know exactly what I'm talking about, and what even the name of the person that I escaped in academia, that has to do with that. So I can speak up against extortion cults. If that will prevent Code Orange, I don't know. But I'm not cooperating with those things that would attempt to turn the regime from within, but are not actually granting sovereignty, because sovereignty can only be with zero rape, zero slavery, zero exploitation society. Yeah. So, and my advice to young people and young activists, I know that the Wealth of Nations was originally by Britain, making China addicted to opiates and looting the silver and so on and so forth. Don't do drugs. Okay? Because this makes you a part of the regime that you want to upturn. And this messes you up in the same way it messes up the previous regime. Again, I'm not talking about people who already are addicted and trying to curate from addiction and so on and so forth. I'm talking about people that so whenever possible, don't do drugs, don't do extortion cults, because yes, it will change regimes, but it won't change what you came here to change. Extortion calls don't change anything. They keep having switching masks. So as per Syria, people ask why now. Why now? Saturn is about to oppose Neptune.